Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And I've got a really interesting guitar player guest with us today. And I actually met, I'm with Storm Rhodes, and he also goes by Stormy Rhodes. So I'm going to call him Storm. It's Storm Rhodes IV. This guy's a legacy, but he goes by Stormy Rhodes. We'll get all that worked out during the show. But I actually had the pleasure of meeting Storm when I was up in Nashville about 6 months ago, I think. And man, he gave me a lift somewhere too, which is really cool of him. I appreciated that. Thank you. So Storm's been in the game a long time. He started singing guitar solos onto recordings at age 5. Oh, and before I go any further, let me just say thank you to Ted Russell Kamp for hooking the two of us up.
Yeah, he's great.
So Storm began recording guitar solos onto recordings at age 5 and began playing at around 9. Actually singing guitar solos at 5 and playing around 9. Just out of high school, he started working at Popular Regional Guitar Shop in management, sales, instruction, and instrument repair while continuing to play shows for different bands in his time off. After leaving the retail world, he set his sights on touring nationwide with different bands, building his reputation as a well-respected lead guitar player and a bass player as well. He got called to move to Austin, Texas, and worked his way into the music scene there as a sideman, collaborating with local artists and bands, and he continues to work the pipeline between Nashville, Austin, and LA, and man, I've seen his odometer. He ain't lying. He's also racked up nearly 30 overseas tours and taught professionally for 14 years. Based out of LA since 2007, he worked regularly with Coffey Anderson, Austin Hanks, Cirque Link, and Christian Nesmith, who's the son of Monkees member Michael Nesmith, Ted Russell Kamp, who plays with Shooter Jennings, we just mentioned Ted, Nick 13 from Tiger Army, Sarah Gayle Meech, who is the Best Outlaw Female 2015 Ameripolitan Awards winner. That sounds really hot, like the Best Female Outlaw Award. Like, that's like, you know, she sounds like someone you kind of
Don't get on her bad side.
Yeah, like you want to see her because she's probably really hot. Then you're thinking, no, I don't need someone that tough. James Intveld, who's the Rockabilly Male 2015 Ameripolitan Awards winner, the Freight Shakers, the Best Outlaw Group for 2015 as well, Rosie Flores, Best Female Honky Tonk and Best Female Rockabilly, and many others, both as a studio musician and as a live sideman. Although able to cover a broad range of styles, he's mostly known and highly in demand for his chicken-picking guitar work. He's played anywhere from small pubs in Holland to large dance halls in Texas and huge festivals in Japan, and most recently the O2 Empire in London, in England. After being part of the LA music scene for 10 years, he then relocated to Nashville in 2018, which is where we met. Storm, thanks so much for your time, and I appreciate you coming on.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You do a lot of, I just was kind of noticing, you do a lot of work in the outlaw sort of genre.
Well, yeah, it's what we would call, like you see, like Ameripolitan or Americana. We usually kind of refer to it as roots music, which is like blues, country, rock and roll, bluegrass, rockabilly, you know, any of that stuff, country, western swing. So I work in those circles mostly.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'll do other stuff. I mean, I've played with guys that have swing bands. You know, we'll do like swing standards and all that stuff, whatever it takes. I like music and I like playing guitar, so I don't care what it is. The only thing I'm not, which may come as a surprise to some folks, is I'm not like a metal guy.
You're not going to shred anytime soon?
I've working in guitar stores and stuff like that, you hear all the other guitar players that come in, and there's shredders all the time because that's what's popular with guitars. So I hear all that stuff, or did when I worked there. And I would always think, man, if I could just translate that into like ripping country playing or bluegrass, And that was what I set out to do. And I've got a lot of speed in my playing. I can play really fast. But I play, my goal has been to do it, and I do, with like no pedals, no distortion, clean amp, Telecaster. That's what a lot of that chicken picking stuff is.
Yeah.
But I've got some speed under the hood, and that all comes from those metal guys.
Sure.
I'm just not. I don't work that world. I'm not really from that at all. There's anything wrong with it.
No. There's only a few guys in Nashville that do that.
Yeah, it's present. A lot of the young guys nowadays, because it's so sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Vintage and retro. You have to remember Van Halen.
Yeah, the 80s.
40 something years ago. So, I mean, that's vintage to them. So, like tapping and all that stuff. There's a lot of young guys in town that are into kind of that. It's nostalgic, and they're incorporating those things into their playing. And as we all know, because of the internet, that over time, these boundary lines, what defined these different styles has now been broken down so much that people crisscross over into all these different things all the time, which I don't mind. I actually, I ran into some problems early when I was playing roots music because I was always trying to add something different, like I would take all these different styles and mix them up and create this sort of like gumbo stew of different things. But a lot of the purists in the roots world want like, do not put any rock in my country. Do not put any blues in my bluegrass, that kind of stuff. So I had to learn how to keep the lines very defined, working with those types of artists. But then other people would encourage me to do they'd say, just come in and bring what you bring.
But you're right. Now there is a convergence. Like I interviewed a guy, John Stickley by any chance? He's a bluegrass guy. He's out of North Carolina. He plays bluegrass with punk and a little bit of shred in there. So there's tons of people now doing that,
Yeah, like Newgrass. There's a lot of those guys.
A lot of Newgrass guys where they put jazz and bluegrass together. Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah. Man. And, that goes back. I mean, guys like Bella Fleck were doing that 30 years ago, and they were cutting edge. But, yeah, it's just the younger guys are doing it. Infamous String Dusters? Those guys are ripping, shredding solos in bluegrass. And, it's really come a long way. And you've got, like, all these young people that, like Chris Thiele, from Nickel Creek, all that. Those guys
from Punch Brothers,
Punch Brothers, exactly. Chris Eldridge and those
I interviewed
guys.
Chris Eldridge. Yeah, he's a wizard, and he plays with jazz with Julian Lodge or whatever his last name is.
Julian Lodge is just holy smokes,
he's
other level there. But and he's and Chris is from Fredericksburg, Virginia, which my home state. So
great guy, Chris is, man.
Yeah, his father was in the Seldom scene.
That's right. That's right.
I grew up with that stuff, so that was cool. Yeah.
Hey, your bio said you got called to Austin, and I'm assuming it wasn't like a religious calling, but not that it's bad if it was.
It wasn't a phone call either. It was. I didn't write that, but what happened was around the time of the mid '80s, I started noticing guitar players from Austin. Obviously the guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Stevie Ray and this new guy that was really, ahead of his time but it was also very retro, was this guy named Eric Johnson.
Oh yeah.
He was from Austin. And so I started watching this kind of quiet little unknown TV show called Austin City Limits on PBS back in those days. Which was really hard to do because usually it was on a Saturday and I was gigging. But whenever I got a chance, I would videotape it or whatever. And if anybody even knows what that is. But I became, even though I was still in touch with everything that was going on around me at the time, I tried to keep up with everything. I was just kind of drawn to this world of Austin City Limits. It was interesting because it was wide open. You had, one night you would have Asleep at the Wheel. Next night you would have somebody like Danny Gatton. And the next night you would have Lucinda Williams, or some, really cool sort of Texas Americana band. Americana didn't exist back then.
That word that's a relatively new word.
But those kind of blurry lines, but it was all good. And something about it started digging into me. And over time, I just kind of became more and more fascinated with Austin. And I went down there, and I had friends that had moved down there, and sort of a cycle, let's just say, of my life had sort of wrapped up towards the end of the 90s. By this time, the 90s. This had all started in the mid 80s. I was always kind of interested, and in fact, I was so fascinated with Austin, Texas, that I've got 2 sons, and my youngest son, my firstborn son, is named after me, so he's the 5th.
That's cool.
But my secondborn son is named Austin. I named him after
That's wild.
Austin, Texas, because I just knew someday I was going to end up there for whatever reason. And so at the end of the 90s, when it's sort of the cycle of my life had sort of wrapped up, and it was time to do something, I was like, all right, I'm long overdue to get down there. So that's when I moved down there. And I had friends that were saying, you need to get down here. And this was before the big Austin explosion. So it was really interesting because a lot of people that I talked to at the time would, like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm moving. Where are you going? I'm going to Austin, Texas. And everyone was like, what the heck? Austin, Texas? Why in the world would anybody want to go there? Well, I'm not going to tell you because I don't want anybody to know how awesome it is.
There's a great music scene there, man. And really good.
This is before it really blew up, and like 6th Street was happening. There was all these great sort of divey blues bars and stuff down there, and any night you could see all these killer musicians playing. And when I moved down there, my roommate, his name is Chris Gilson, he still lives down there. He is a drummer, probably one of the most connected drummers in Austin. He was playing with Dale Watson, and then from Dale's gig, he went and started playing with Red Volkart, whom you know.
Yeah, definitely.
He's been playing with Red now for almost 15 years, if not longer. Yeah,
really?
Almost 15 years. Yeah, he's Red's. So if you ever go see Red, if he's not playing with Hey Bill, it's Red's band. Chris is the drummer. Well, that was my roommate.
At the Continental Club, man. He play all the time there, yeah.
Absolutely. So here I am living in Austin with Chris, my roommate, who's gigging every single night. He's like Ted Russell Kamp, he's Superman. They play like, 5 nights a day. And
Ted is on.
And so all I did was just hang around with my roommate Chris, and he was playing all these killer gigs in Austin. So I got introduced to all these people, and through that I was able to just I wouldn't say easily, but I was able to kind of slide my way in to working with people there.
That's great, man.
Through association, and it was awesome. I still love it. I could easily live there now. It's changed a lot. It's not like.
Well, so is Nashville.
Well, so is Nashville. I first came to Nashville in '95 to record an album. So like it was a whole other small town back then.
Yeah.
It was really cool back in. It's still cool. Don't get me wrong, but back in those days, all the big time pickers were still hanging around. They weren't all retired yet, so you could go. But even Lower Broadway had bands, but it wasn't nothing like it is now. There were still tumbleweeds blowing down that street. You could still park on Lower Broadway.
Really?
You could still drive there and park. Yeah, there weren't.
Well, now you certainly cannot park
for Ubers.
Yeah,
you can't go anywhere near the place. But back in those days, you could still get down there. So it's totally changed. But Austin too. Yeah, Austin, the thing about that place is the infrastructure was never really designed to handle that large of an influx of population. So they had Austin is also known for all that tech stuff, like Dell is there, and all the computer stuff. All the .com companies blew up in the early 2000s out there, and it's just like boom, everybody started moving, and just traffic, and they were building upper decks for the highways and all that stuff, and it got full pretty quick, but it was still really awesome.
I've interviewed tons of players from the Austin area. There's a lot of great players there still, but everybody says, and it's the same in Nashville. When I was in Nashville last time, like when we met, everybody was like about the infrastructure, and everything is just like, it's not designed for that. It's a small town basically. Yep. And now it's like the epicenter.
Yeah. Right on. So Austin was just something that to me, what was so interesting about it was that it had that combination of, there's that slogan. I know Portland has it too, but like Austin was always known as that with that slogan, "Keep Austin Weird." It was just an odd mix up of, you had guys like Stevie Ray, who was like a combination. I don't want to take anything away from him because he had his thing, but he also obviously was influenced by guys like Jimi Hendrix and Albert King.
Yeah,
and he
absolutely.
put all that stuff together, so you had him doing his thing, and then you had his brother Jimmy Vaughn and the T-Birds, and you had, like Archangels, and those guys were playing. But he also had like Doug Somm, Texas Tornadoes, all these guys that were really kind of mixing it up. It was Waylon and Willie, that stuff broke down there, in the mid-'70s. It was a weird combination of, in other words, like it didn't seem to have all the rules and boundaries that all these other places had. I always saw Austin as sort of like Nashville's younger rebellious brother. Like it had all the same roots, but it was like kind of defiant, and we're going to integrate more blues into our music and more rock and roll in our country, and not ruining it, but just creating. It was a little more arty and creative and experimental, I guess. So I liked that.
What made you leave?
Well, believe it or not, this will sound crazy. It kind of slipped through my hands. I was living there, and I ended up getting an opportunity to go out and tour with an artist that had a deal out of Nashville on DreamWorks. And that artist was touring all over the planet. And I had thought, we'll go do a tour like a normal artist does. 6 months on, come home for 6 months, 6 months on, come home for that kind of thing. But it wasn't like that. I ended up satelliting all the time out of wherever we were to go play all these shows. And during that time, while I was out on the road, my roommate, Chris, ended up buying a house and moving out of the place we had. So I had to put all my stuff in storage. Oh. So I had all this stuff in storage. And then over time, I just kept paying all this money for a storage space that I was never at. So, because I was always on the road. And so eventually I just ended up not living there anymore.
Because you
sort of phased out. It wasn't intentional. But that's just kind of how it went. I was on the road so much, and my foundation just kind of slowly separated. Not fell apart, but it just changed. And as a result, I ended up not really living there. And it's hard to just keep mailing, sending the DMV your registration for your truck to get new stickers for your plates all the time when you're all over the place waiting for that stuff. And then in 2005, unfortunately, my mom passed away. So I ended up.
Sorry about that.
I just ended up moving back home to Virginia for a year just to kind of be home for keep my dad kind of company, because for the first time ever, he was the only one in the house. So, and he's, he wasn't elderly or anything. It's just a big life change.
Man, that's really very nice of you. You must be close with your folks. Actually, I wasn't. So it was sort of a wake-up call, like, oh, I'm really not close to my family. And this is something as a son, I feel like I should do. Hey, what's this? So you just moved. So you moved back with your dad. How did that go for that year? Did you sort of like connect?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have to remember it was a little. I had been living a completely different life out on the road. I know you had asked the question. What did my parents do on this questionnaire?
Yeah.
Well, my father was career military.
Oh wow!
So he was stationed at the Pentagon, and so I lived a very, very different life. Not in terms of like the Rolling Stones wild party life. What's interesting is in order to be successful in this,
you got to be incredibly disciplined.
You have to be very disciplined and organized.
just
like the military. But nobody ever sees that. They think it's a party, So anyway, I mean, the fact was, here were two guys that, we both had something in common. We both had lost someone dear to us. And we were both kind of grieving. So there wasn't a lot of, I don't want to say there wasn't a lot of buddy going on. It was just, there was a lot of adjusting. We were both just kind of like, here we are, we're here. And
how did it go?
Oh, I think it went well. Yeah, I think as a result, we're a lot closer.
That's great, man. That's a really, I mean, just as an outsider looking in, it just seems like a very kind thing of you to do.
Well,
especially if you
think I needed it. That seemed like the right thing to do at the time. I mean, if you back up a little, I have 2 sons, and they moved around that time to California. So I was sort of at a crossroads to go. I need to go with them or go back home. But I thought, you know what, my kids, I mean, they're teenagers, so it's like they're fine. They're going to be okay. I'm going to go back east and just kind of let things settle a little and get back to living. And then from there, after a year, I had moved to LA to go be near my kids.
That's really cool.
That was the second move for family.
Yeah, that's a really, I mean, again, as an announcer, that's a very heartwarming thing to hear, to be honest with you, because it's a big sacrifice, and it's like you seem like you did it without a problem, like
Sometimes there's those things that are the most important.
Good for you, man. I'm glad you did that. I am sure your dad had to be happy.
I think so. I hope so.
Come on, I couldn't see. I mean, I'm a father of 3 kids, and I would be extremely taken aback if one of them did that. I would be like, and but I'm the kind, I don't want to put on anybody, especially my kids, so, I mean, and I would imagine your dad's probably, very independent as well. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a very nice thing, man. Very cool. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, man.
Absolutely.
And then you moved to LA to be with your kids after you spent a year with your dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
cool. And then you moved back. You left LA. What happened there?
Well, I left LA to come here.
Right.
So I don't. I think really I'm a gypsy. I shouldn't put down roots anywhere. But
some people are like that. I've spoken to a number of people like that.
Yeah. I should have just had one guitar over my shoulder and walked into the sunset. But I was in LA for 11 years. And actually, believe it or not, I ended up when I moved there, I have a sister that lives there. I only have one sister, but one sibling, my sister. She's lived there now for like almost 20 years. She moved there from after Virginia, she went to Georgia and then to California for work with her husband. And so when I moved to LA, it was really easy. I just moved in with her for a little while, get on my feet, that kind of thing.
So that's cool. So you had your sister there and your sons.
And my sons. Yeah.
Oh, that was really great.
Yeah, it worked out really well. They're all still there.
That's great.
And the first month I was there, I talked to my roommate Chris in Austin, and he said, "Hey, I just ran into a friend of ours, James Intveld. I just ran into him in Austin, and I told him you moved to LA, and he said have him give me a call." So I called James, and boom, right away there I was. I was working, gigging, playing in LA, and networking, meeting all these people. So
that's great.
It didn't take long to start meeting people like Ted, and there are people, Ted Russell Kamp.
Yeah,
there are people that are like Ted. They have this humongous Rolodex of names.
Yeah, Ted seems like he's like that, man.
And they just figure out how to integrate all these people into all kinds of different musical activities.
Sure.
So, and I was fortunate enough when I moved here to Nashville that I met some people like that too, that are just like boom, boom, boom. They grab you and they just start throwing you in with all these different artists.
That's great.
So,
but you're also got to be, I mean, they're not doing that because, I mean, you're also extremely adept at playing music, well, I mean, you can't just do, especially in Nashville, man, there's no shortage of freaking great guitar players there.
Oh yeah. You can't, I don't want to say you can't relax, but you can't come in, at least to me, I can't come in slacking. I have to bring my A game.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you don't, there's 20 guys behind you with their A game.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And, they have the saying here that the goal isn't to get the call for the gig. The goal is to get the call back after you've done the gig.
That's very true. So
I play every gig as if I want the next call back. there's what's that saying? Under promise, over perform.
Under promise, over deliver. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe in that wholeheartedly. In business, I've always tried to do that, man. Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that's my secret. Yeah, I mean, I like to think that, like Joe Bonamassa says, he's got 10,000 hours put into his playing. So, I do too. I've got 10,000 hours more than that put into my playing. So I'd like to think at least that I can bring not just what's required, but maybe something better than that's just required. But also, one of the things I've learned over all the years that no one talks too much about is you can never be too prepared. And when I say prepared, I mean like professionally prepared, meaning, not to go into a sermon here, but like show up on time, do your homework, know the material. If you don't know the guitar parts, know the bass parts and the drum parts and the keyboard, know the arrangements of the songs, that stuff, and just have that sort of organization in place so that when you show up, you know what you're doing. You're a professional besides just being a guitar player. That seems to have worked a lot in my favor. I show up and I do as much homework as I can, as if I try to play every gig as though I'm a band member.
Man, and I think, and I always try to point out sort of like secrets of success here. And I think everything you just said is incredibly smart. The goal is to get the call back. So you're going in there like you're not taking anything for granted. You're earning it every night that, you're playing every night as if you have to. And I like that you said you're going in there and you're not just a guitar player. You're a well-rounded musician because you're a member of the team now.
Yeah.
You're contributing.
There's a balance. Sometimes I have to catch myself because I think I'm going to come in and I'm going to slay this gig, and then you're getting those sideways glances from the artist kind of going, okay, easy there, hot shot, back off a little. So I try to maintain a balance and just do what's really required for the gig, but also try to elevate it in some way so that it, our goal as, I'm really essentially a sideman.
Sure.
The goal of being a sideman is to elevate the artist and make them look as good as possible. Yeah. So by contributing something good, you can inspire the artist and take them to. I've done gigs like that where I've been with guys who were maybe a little nervous, and during solos, walk over to the center of the stage with them, and I just say things like, "Yeah, this is great, sounds killer." Whatever I can to encourage them. You can see them kind of lighten up and smile and be like, "Oh yeah, okay, this is all right." So we're as side musicians, we're in a supporting role.
Yes.
It's a little more cutthroat at the bottom, but if you can get in and work with a handful of artists, it goes well.
Yeah. You've played some really cool venues all over the world. I was curious, what would be the top 3 venues?
That's tough. That's really hard. Specific venues, there's this one, there's a festival in Japan that I got to play called Country Gold. So there's a lot of artists that are familiar with that. It's an annual show, usually I believe in September, I want to say. Anyway, it's huge outdoor, gigantic, huge stage, big festival. Kumamoto, Japan, I believe, and a guy named Charlie Nagatani runs it, and everybody's played it.
Oh man, I've heard that guy's name.
Yeah, everybody's played it in country, and that was amazing. Japan was amazing. I also, I've played just really cool festivals. I played one in Italy, in Senigallia, not that long ago. That was just the classic. You're up there on stage, and you're like, this is, it's got the big Jumbotron screens, and you're headlining. It's Saturday night, and it's just people for as far as you can see. And it's Italy, so there's all these old buildings all over the place, and it's outside, and you're just kind of the whole time playing, going this is what it's about. This is the sort of quintessential festival concert, and we're doing it, and the band sounds great, and I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be.
That's really cool, man. That's nice.
I've played some cool places like the Ryman. I've played the Ryman. Actually, I played there the day Ray Charles died. That's how I remember that.
Oh, wow.
But I played the Ryman. I played the Surf Ballroom quite a few times, which is the place in Clear Lake, Iowa, where Buddy Holly and Richie Valens and the Big Bopper, that was their last gig.
Oh, wow.
Flew out of there. But also, like, one gig that really made a huge impression on me, I did it twice, was the first time was December over Christmas and New Year's of 2003. And then I did it again in September of 2004 with different artists. I went to Iraq.
Oh, wow.
So the first tour we did, it was with an artist named Craig Morgan and Jolie Edwards. Were
on the
tour. And it was...
Man, he's always got great guitar players, that guy.
Oh, yeah. And he can pick with a cop, you know.
He does.
We were sent on, there's a lot of different types of military tours. Like, most people are familiar with USO, that kind of stuff. And USO is great, you know. USO, the big difference is, like, USO is kind of something where, like, somebody like David Letterman or a big celebrity might go, like, fly in, land, get off the plane, do their show, get on the plane and go back. And the stuff we did was with a company called Armed Forces Entertainment, along with a company called Stars for Stripes, based out of here in Nashville. And they send you to the front lines.
Really?
So, it's stripped down bare. You get issued your Kevlar, you know, your helmets, your armored flak vests.
Holy shit! So you're playing in vests?
Yeah, you're thrown into the Blackhawks and you're flown out to the bases or in the Humvees.
Wow.
And we're taking American, you know, a piece of home to these guys that haven't seen any entertainment, you know, forever. They're way out in the middle of nowhere. So it was very, and it was Christmas and New Year's, so very emotional, you know, time to be playing. It gives you a sense of what music can do.
Yeah.
To that audience. It's like the best audience in the world. You know, you want to talk about people who appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, they must have been so grateful. I can't imagine.
Yeah. So it was, those were, I mean, literally, we were playing everything from big outdoor shows to mess halls. You know, we just, like, you're going to some, you know, camp such and such out in the middle of nowhere, and you're going in during lunch, and artists are walking on the tables singing to people. You know, we're walking around the room playing.
That's wild. What's the flight like? How long is a flight over there?
Well, and
it's not like you just go to one airport and you get off, I'm sure, right?
Oh, no. What you do is you go, or at least what we were doing was usual standard issue, you know, like fly out of somewhere like Atlanta or Memphis to usually a hub in Europe, like Copenhagen or Frankfurt or somewhere. And then from there you go to Kuwait. And in Kuwait, you kind of stay at a hotel there. And then out of Kuwait, you take the military flights into Baghdad or wherever you're going.
Yeah.
And then from there, you switch over. Like, the first tour, we had Blackhawks and Humvees. The second tour, we just had Blackhawks for everything. So it was a little more. The first tour we went, it was crazy out there. I mean, it's a war zone, but it's like the Wild West. It's, you know, the Sunni Triangle, Ambush Alley, Highway of Death, all that stuff was still open. You know, we're taking Humvees through all that stuff. You know, by the time we went back in September, it was still crazy. We were playing a show outside in Baghdad, and a rocket flew over the stage. Fortunately, it was a dud. But, you know,
but it may not have been. Yeah.
Yeah, it may not have been. And, you know,
holy shit.
The thing is, the time we went back, things were just a little more secure. It's hard to say things are secure in a war zone because everything's still blowing up around you. But we were able to just take the Blackhawks everywhere we went. You know, we were never grounded.
Wow.
So it was just an amazing experience. Speaking of venues, that was, you know, it's hard to top that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's cool, man.
Yeah.
So you're originally from Virginia.
Yeah, that's where I grew up.
Whereabouts?
In Fairfax County, which is Northern Virginia.
Okay, so like near DC.
Kind of, yeah.
A little bit outside.
20 miles.
Yeah.
But it was out. I was fortunate that we lived out people probably don't remember this, but like from like Tyson's Corner out to Dulles Airport was all farms. There was nothing out there. You had the highway that went to to Dulles had no exits. So if you accidentally got on it, you had to drive 20 minutes or half hour all the way out to Dulles to turn around to come all the way back. And so it was all farms out there, and I grew up out there. And
did you grow up on a farm?
No, I didn't grow up on a farm, but I grew up across the street from a farm.
That's wild.
And the land that we lived on was all pasture. So
that's wild.
It was cool. It was a neighborhood, but it was a new neighborhood in the middle of all this area. And what was cool was, it wasn't until that they decided to open exits up on that highway road that all of a sudden everything blew up out there.
Okay.
Reston and all that. But the thing is, where we lived is surrounded by, I grew up with creeks and streams. They call them runs out there, like Wolf Trap Run, Difficult Run. They're like, creeks and streams. And because of that, everything's floodplain. So they can't build. So like where I grew up is exactly the same as it's always been. There's no 7-Elevens or McDonald's or anything out there. It's all zoned residential, but you can't build anything out there because it's all floodplain. Wow. So I go back and I look out the back window of our house onto 36 acres of streams and woods and all that stuff. It's all still there. The deer come right up to the back door of the house. So
it's very rural.
It is in a sort of now isolated way because everything's sort of grown up around it, but it's still kind of tucked away into its area.
That's very cool, man.
Nice, So yeah, just kind of more towards like Great Falls out that way, down Route 7.
And I guess that was probably convenient for your dad. Probably worked in DC, so he just took a straight shot right on. Yeah, okay, that makes sense now.
Yep.
How did you at what point did you get involved with music?
Well, like you had mentioned earlier, like that I was singing guitar solos into microphones. Like, of course, I'm going to date myself, which is going to, Craig, this is going to ruin me because nobody knows. Nobody knows how old I am. But,
that's a thing, man. You know what? I talk to so many musicians, and everybody has the same. Like, I don't want to date myself, or because in many situations, and I'll share this with the listeners, and guys have told me that they get picked for a gig, and then they're on the gig, and then they say, man, basically you're a little too old for this gig. But it's kind of fucked up because that's after the fact. Like the guy didn't suddenly get that age since in 6 months, which is, and it's kind of weird because like if you did that in a regular job, you can't do that. Music, entertainment's like one of those few industries, where you can still like go to someone and say, well, you're too old for the gig. And then it's like, oh, okay. But it's fucked up because someone's like inconvenient, changed their whole life and their family's gotten used to it. He or she's going to be out of town for 6 months, or it's kind of bullshit.
Well, it's you got to be careful. Like you were saying earlier, there's a line a mile long of guys anxious to get any work, especially now. The industry, we all know it's shrinking. So there isn't nearly as much work out there as there used to be. And like there's an artist that I work with quite often who's literally, well, let's just say way younger than I am.
Yeah.
So I like the gig, so I want to keep it.
No, I hear you, man.
But anyway, just to kind of back things up a little, I'll show a little age here. It was very common back in the old days for when fathers went to Vietnam, at least because I was always in these military circles.
Sure.
They all came back with all this brand new hi-fi gear.
Interesting.
Receivers and turntables and reel-to-reel decks and
like they'd come back from
Vietnam because you could buy all that stuff over there.
Okay.
Cheap. So they would all come back.
I didn't realize. I didn't know that.
Yeah, when you're surrounded by military families. Now I will say this: I was though I would have been grateful, I was fortunate that I never had to live on base.
Sure.
I don't know how that worked out, but because I've got cousins, my whole family's military. I've got cousins that spent their entire,
on base,
young adults on base. So somehow we managed to not do that. But because of all of my father's friends are all military. The weekends come, you go to their houses to play or whatever. They all have the same furniture. They all have the same equipment, all that stuff.
That's wild.
So all of a sudden here it was, my father comes back and he's got all this hi-fi gear. So he would do this, like we would have fun. He would grab this microphone and he would make recordings of my sister and I, say, hey, tell us something about yourself. What's your favorite color or whatever, what did you learn today or just something. And he would say to her, hey, what do you want to do? Here's the microphone. What do you want to say or do or sing or something? And she would sing some song and then he would hand it to me. And I didn't know how to play guitar. I just knew I liked the sound of the electric guitar. It was wild and crazy. So, I'm 4, 5, 6 years old and I would be going, singing, basically scat singing guitar solos into this mic. So I knew even then that I was attracted to it for some reason. And at this time, my father being the oldest of 7,
good Lord.
Wait
a minute,
youngest
man.
brothers.
Hold on. Let me pause on that a second and process that. Holy shit. 7.
All the Storms are firstborn.
Wow. That's a...
that was a handful. And that was he was, my grandfather, Storm II, was career military as well. So they moved, every year they were moving. So my father was like second in command, running the house for all these, getting everybody lined up and in the cars and wherever everybody had to go all the time. So he learned leadership very early on.
Did he have you guys marching with like military precision from here to there?
It wasn't too bad. It wasn't like, that kind of drill sergeant.
Right.
But it was very organized. And there were times when, I have to admit, sometimes I thought, I'd look around like, gosh, it's just my sister and I.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. You kind of need to do that when you got 6 others, but when you got 2, it's probably, you could,
like, why are we being marched around? Not marched around, but, like.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so we're part of this much bigger group.
Yeah.
But it's all good, So what happened was his 2 youngest brothers, my uncles, at the time that my grandfather got orders to Saudi Arabia, I believe it was.
Oh, wow.
My 2 uncles were just old enough to stay behind if they went to school, like college, or they were finishing up high school, and they could live with us.
Okay.
So them being in their late teens, there were records being played 24/7 in the house.
So you had like older hangout buddies pretty much.
Kind of, yeah, pretty much. And my Uncle Scott was also played guitar. He still does. He's like in the Oahu. He lives in Hawaii. This was in Hawaii, by the way.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Before Virginia. And he's in the Oahu Bluegrass Society. But so like he still plays. But just having him playing guitar in the house and all his friends coming over and strumming acoustic guitars and stuff, it just always seemed like something that people did. And I gravitated towards it for some reason. I remember being like 7 or 8 years old and writing songs on someone's acoustic, singing about whatever 7 or 8-year-olds sing about.
Yeah.
I wrote about like believe it or not, I wrote about like living on a farm with cows and goats and animals and stuff.
That's wild. So you had family members who basically turned you on to it and you adapted. You gravitated towards it pretty naturally.
Indirectly. I mean, like we're here in Tennessee, obviously there's a lot of like bluegrass players that grew up in the family, picking on the front porch, that kind of thing. It's handed down. This what nobody said, Stormy, need to do this. They just were doing it, and it caught my ear for some reason. I just thought it was really neat. And by the time I was 9, I kind of knew like, man, I really like guitars. And that's when we had moved to Virginia. And we had all of these upright wardrobe moving boxes. They have a metal rod in them, so you can hang clothes.
Sure.
And they were just long enough that I could go through like catalogs or magazines that had pictures of guitars in them, and I could draw guitars on these boxes and then cut them out and paint them and put strings on them. And I had a guitar collection of all these different guitars that I cut out of all these boxes. I had them all around my room. And so I couldn't, I didn't know how to play, but I kept bugging my folks like, I want to be a guitar player. I want to play guitar. And of course, in a military house, it's like, well,
yeah,
let's not encourage that sort of thing. But over time, it wasn't until I was 14 that I was able to convince my parents that if, we split the price on a guitar and then I pay them back the other half, that I could get one. Prior to that, for 2 years before that, I had been borrowing friends' guitars every chance I could and just sitting up in my room and just banging away. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I was just banging away on these things, slowly sort of cracking the code. And, initially, like I would play all these riffs and things just by moving my finger up and down the strings. I could hear the intervals. I could hear that I'm ascending or descending, but I just didn't necessarily know what I was doing.
Sure.
And little by little, I would always set my sights right on any guitar player that was anywhere around me. Didn't matter if it was a nun strumming a classical guitar. I would watch and go, okay, what is that? Like if they're playing a D chord or something, I'd be thinking like, okay, I've got to imprint that image in my mind. So when I go home, I can try to remember what that was that they did. And over time, just through being resourceful like that, just absorbing everything I possibly could. And you have to remember, this is back in the day when there was no internet. So you had to really watch TV. You stay up late, watch Don Kirshner's rock.
You didn't get to push it. You didn't get to watch over and over again. Yeah, you had one shot, and that was it.
Yeah, exactly. So anything I could to just watch and absorb and learn. It was a slow learn, but I was able to start putting things together. And then, when I was 14, I ended up putting my first band together and gigging out. Was I gigging at 14? I may have been 15 when I was playing. But anyway.
That's pretty young to be gigging out. Yeah,
I had a handful of friends that were actually really good. They still are. I mean, not that they, the thing about music is a lot of people, I'm guilty of saying that. A lot of people who aren't musicians say, oh, can you believe so-and-so still hacking away at this? And it's like, actually, these musicians have been doing it for so long, they're better than they've ever been.
Yeah.
So I had these friends that were just, like I had this drummer who was 12. He was killer. Solid, steady, slamming. How in the world do you find a 12-year-old drummer like that?
Yeah.
But he was great. So we went out and played gigs. I was probably the weakest link in the chain, but it was a great experience. And, started just playing. We took everything, school functions, talent shows, parties, whatever, and just learned, play music and learn.
Well, it must have been cool growing up in Hawaii.
Hawaii was great. I was,
I mean, you're kind of young, but.
Yeah, we moved when I was 9. But it was, I lived there, we moved there when I was 4. So it was, 5 years. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Every morning, have you been to Hawaii? I don't know.
I got married in Hawaii, actually.
Oh, well,
yeah.
awesome.
And I always used to think I wanted, the people there, they have the aloha spirit, man. I found that to be true. I found everybody incredibly warm, welcoming.
Absolutely.
I mean, there was this, again, I got married a long time ago, but in fact, 2 days from now, as we're recording, is 26 years I've been with my wife. But I know that's a lifetime. That's like dog years for her. That would be like 100, like fucking 200 years on her end or something. But I know they went and they said, oh, they don't, they're not friendly to whites, and I never felt that once when I was there. Not, oh, you did. Is it because you were military?
No, it didn't have, because we lived there again. We didn't live on base. We lived up in Halava Heights, so it was kind of up in the hills.
What island was this?
Oahu.
Okay, yeah, that's the main island.
Yeah, my father was stationed at Hickam Air Force Base, and it was just the local. We lived in a neighborhood with the neighbors on our right were Chinese, the neighbors on the left
I was going to say, there's not like a lot of Hawaiians there. There's a lot more, East Asians than Hawaiians living in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, I was one of like maybe 2 white kids in my class. They were all mostly Japanese or, Polynesian, Japanese, South Pacific.
Yes.
And so, I stood out, and it was tough. And we were called Howleys.
Howleys, yes. Yeah. I don't want to say that, but yeah.
You'd be standing somewhere and it wasn't even a kid, an adult. This is the shocking thing. It would be an adult who would walk by and, say something like, shut up, Howley, or get out of here, Howley. Go home.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm just
holy shit. That's horrible, man.
So
awful.
Let's say because of that.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more aware of what that's like for someone else to experience. So
So you're probably more empathetic and understand. Yeah.
I don't do that.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, because but I was an adult and I wasn't hanging out in. You were probably in more rural settings, or
we were just like in these little neighborhoods, back in the hills.
Yeah. That's wild, man. That's
like I don't remember really feeling that like down at the beach, like we were down in Honolulu or Waikiki.
Sure.
Or something. I don't remember that. I just remember that being more kind of in these small areas where, people would just say that, and I just always remember being shocked, like, wow, because what happens is, and this happens, I'm sure, with all ethnicities, is like, I'm sitting there thinking like, well, wait a minute, I was just born and here I am.
Right. Like,
I didn't choose that.
Right.
Now you're faulting me for this. I had nothing to do with it, So it was interesting, but otherwise, it wasn't 5 years of that every day. That was just, it was enough to leave a pretty big impression on me. But, and I was always aware, kind of be careful around these people. But nevertheless, it was an awesome experience. So, and one of the things I remember about living in Hawaii was because the weather's so amazing all the time.
Oh yeah. It is. It's humid as shit there, though. I mean, I'm in Florida now, but it's the same thing.
Right.
But,
it can be.
Yeah.
And there are bugs. There's bugs. There's centipedes, scorpions. But the thing is, like, people would have parties outside, and bands would play, and you could hear them all over the place. So, like, almost every weekend, I remember I'd be outside hearing bands, and just being into it, just think, wow, there's a band. I wish I could be in that band. And, I was in grade school going, wow, that's the coolest thing. So even then I was attracted to it.
So you just had the affinity, the bug.
It spoke to me. Like I mean, obviously we know music is a language, but it somehow was a language I understood. It made sense. It just, and it still does. It's bizarre, but it's something that I was attracted to, not even knowing. It wasn't like so much a choice, like of all my options, this is what I'm going to choose. It was more like I don't have any other options.
Right. That's great, man.
It's the moth to the flame. It's going to be my undoing, but nevertheless, I have to go there.
Well, you did it. What were Storm, what were some of the lower points, because you've been doing this a long time, lower points or some of the bigger obstacles you've had to deal with over your career, and how did you get through them? And whether it's business, personal, music related, whatever you choose to talk about.
Obstacles.
Challenges, low points, whatever you want to call them. Bad shit that you had to deal with.
That's a good question. The only real challenge, and it wasn't, I have to be careful how I say this. There was a period of my life where I moved around a lot.
Yeah.
I was living, believe it or not, in Nebraska, in Omaha, Nebraska. And Omaha's a great place. It's really easy to live there. It's comfortable. Winters are a little unbearable for me, but otherwise the quality of life there is wonderful. Having had lived in Hawaii and Virginia, I needed a little more connection to the outside world.
Sure.
But I lived in Nebraska, and I ended up getting married there and having kids there, and kind of sort of getting myself stuck there. So my challenge was, it took me a long time. That's when I ended up moving to Austin, Texas. It took me a long time to get myself into a position
where you can get out of there.
I could get out of there, because I was in very popular bands. I was playing. The thing about Omaha was, I had opportunities there that I would have never had back in Virginia. Because even in Virginia, maybe it would have gotten better once I was a little older. But, we would get kind of shooed out of the guitar shops. Hey, kids, get out of here,
Really?
Come back. Well, because, we were teenagers, and we were like, hey, can I play through that Marshall stack? Like every teenager.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no. Can you afford to pay that? They knew we didn't have any money. They weren't going to bother when they had real professionals coming in.
Omaha was a lot more laid back.
Omaha was, that's where I ended up getting, I got a killer job at a guitar shop 2 weeks out of high school.
Okay. Did you know, I interviewed from James Valentine from Maroon 5. I'm almost positive he's from Omaha.
What?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Because
I didn't know him. Yeah. He's younger than I am.
Not a lot. Not if he is, he's not by a lot. Yeah. He's not by a lot. He looks real young.
I didn't know him. But I ended up I got a job at a great guitar shop. And I ended up also getting to play. I worked my way up. I got to play with all these bands and play huge shows and make tons of money and do all of these things that I wouldn't have been able to do had I lived in like LA or one of the big music cities, where there's all this competition. I was able to get up, climb up and play all these really killer shows and work like crazy and make a ton of money and get a lot of experience. So by the time I had moved to Austin, I was seasoned. I had mileage. I had 1,000 shows under my belt by then.
Oh, wow.
And
you got married real young.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I'm not married now, but
no, I'm aware of that. But I know you must have got married real young, because I know you started working in that right out of high school in that
right out of
store.
High school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as challenges, I just remember every day kind of thinking, all right, this is great, but there's a bigger world out there, and I have to figure out how to get there. Be more part of it. So, Omaha's great. I have a lot of friends there. I just needed to be out into the world more. So
I understand that.
And some people would just say, whatever, I'm just going to cut my losses, pack up and go.
You can't do that when you got kids, man. It's not easy. I mean, you can, but it's like, it's not so easy, man.
Yeah. So that was a big challenge. That was the hardest thing,
Yeah, if you're not happy living someplace, it's shitty, man.
I was well aware of the fact that had I been born and grown up there, I would have been happy. All my friends grew up there. They were born there, grew up there, and they loved it. Awesome. But I always wanted to get back home to Virginia. I missed Virginia.
Yeah.
Being around my folks. And just when I had the chance to move back to Virginia, that's when I ended up going to Austin, because I was like, all these years had gone by where I'm like, I got to get down there.
Yeah.
Just some reason, something about what's going on down there. I got to see it and be a part of it.
Well, man, it's important you went, because had you not gone, all these years later, you'd be sitting back and saying, what if, and that's not really fair to yourself.
Yeah. I don't have too many what ifs.
I think that's great.
What if I hadn't gotten married?
No, but it's better to have a what if over something you did than something you didn't do. Because you're going to make mistakes. If it wouldn't have been that, it would have been another mistake. I mean, that's life, mistakes are inevitable. But not doing stuff that you can't kind of get back, that's a tough thing, man, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think I have really any. I can't think of too many things that I haven't crossed off my list. I've done most everything I've wanted to do.
Cool, man.
Maybe not on, same scale. Like I'm not a member of the Rolling Stones. That's okay. On a high level, but I've still been able to do all of the same things.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So yeah.
All right, man. Let's talk about gear a little bit. I see all those guitars behind you. What's your go-to guitar right now? And I know you do tons of work and sessions, and you do, you as a sideman. I'm just talking about the guitar you like to play. So what's your go-to that you like, and then what other two would round out your top three?
The probably the one I use the most is a Telecaster. Yeah, that's sort of my Swiss Army knife. There isn't really much I can't do with a Telecaster.
Any particular Tele?
Not really. I've got I own a handful of them, and the Tele they all vary just slightly, but they're all kind of roughly the same. When I say they vary, I mean like they go from like a thin neck to a very thick neck. The necks are the only things that are really any different. My Teles tend to be. They're all maple neck. I like the maple neck Teles. Although I'm not opposed to getting a rosewood board if one comes my way. But the main thing about my Teles is they have very I wouldn't say low, but just normal output pickups. I don't have any hot rodded, fancy high output anything. They're regular old issue Tele pickups that do what a Tele does. And the cool thing to me about a Tele is that, like for all that country stuff, they snap and they pop real easily.
Right.
The sound jumps out of them if you wanted to. You can thicken them up. You have to remember the first Zeppelin album was recorded with a Telecaster.
Right.
You can really thicken those things up. Or
how do you thicken it up for you? Like, what do you do to thicken up a Tele sound?
You can just roll that tone back.
Yeah.
And add some dirt, and you can be rocking out. But what's really cool to me about a Tele is even when they're clean, they sound dirty. They have a snarl to them in the sound of the notes that come out of them. That even like if you listen to Brent Mason playing all that Alan Jackson stuff, it's super clean, but there's still this kind of gnarly sound that comes out of that a Strat doesn't do. A Strat is clear, and jangly.
Yeah.
Strats have that clear jangle to them, that bell tone. But a Tele's got this snarl to it that just kind of, you can hear the windings of the strings on it. It's just.
Guys that love Teles, it's either like I don't get a Tele, and I have one. I got to actually sell it. Anybody listening, I'm selling my Tele. It's like literally brand new because it hasn't been played for this reason. But guys guys that play them, like you look at a guy like Red Volkart.
Oh yeah.
But there's dozens of guys like that, like yourself. I mean, that's your instrument, and it's your Swiss Army knife. It's the same words that I hear, and but I think you have to know how to leverage it, and it has to work for you.
Yeah. One thing that I would say I bear the scars, but I was also fortunate enough to experience was that I kind of cut my teeth live every night playing long sets where I worked with an artist who basically in a I guess it was a direct way just said, hey man, lose the pedal board and just plug straight into the amp. I want the guitar to be a lot purer sounding and cleaner, get rid of the pedals. And so I learned how to do everything I had to do straight into a clean Fender amp. And that forced me to have to, it's all there.
Yeah.
A lot of people know that. It's there.
Yeah.
You just have to find it. And
so you just learned how to use volume knobs and tone knobs and your amp settings.
And the amp in my hands. Yeah, it's all in the hands. I know that everybody says that, but it's true.
No, but it is. It is.
But
of course.
Pull it out. And the thing, like, I played a Strat for years. For probably most of the 90s, but I didn't play a Strat because of the way a Strat sounded. I played a Strat because I liked the way it felt. The body's contoured.
Oh, it feels great. It's so easy to play.
Yeah, it's easy. I liked that. It was comfortable. And I mean, I liked Strat guys, who does, I liked Stevie Ray and Hendrix and all that. I liked being able to get all those sounds, but it didn't really twang out like a Tele. And it took me a long time I shouldn't say a long time. It took me a little while through that trial and error to learn how to make a Tele do what it's supposed to do. And then from then on, there was no turning back. So even like I just played last week here in Nashville, same thing. I just plug straight into a Fender, turn it up, and just roll the volume back a little, and then just, it's all there. The thing that I like about playing that way, it's not for everyone. And there are plenty of gigs I do. I've got to play. I'm playing in Alabama and Texas this weekend. I'm going to have a pedal board with me because I have to for that gig.
Right.
But most of the gigs I do, if I don't have to bring a pedal board, it's great because I'm present. You know,
yeah.
I'm on stage. I'm not thinking, oh, I got to step on this. I got to step on that. Ooh, I need to put a delay on. I got to put this on. It's just, I am focused and everything I need is right here. And I'm just playing music. You know, like I don't have to think about it. If I need a little more something of this, I turn it up a little or I turn it down a little. It's interesting when you get to, I mean, I know a lot of guitar players know this, but when you get to that sort of sweet spot where everything is, the changes are very subtle. You know, you can just barely turn the tone down a little or barely turn the volume up a little, and you get these big differences because the instrument is so responsive. When you don't have all those pedals in the chain, all of a sudden the guitar becomes alive. Yeah. Otherwise, the guitar is just sort of this blank that you're controlling with pedals. You know, especially if everything's on 10, then you're just stepping on pedals, and that turns your volume or your gain up and down. The guitar's not really doing much, but once you get rid of those pedals, you learn how to make the guitar do what it needs to do. And there's a reason why Telecasters, Stratocasters, Les Pauls, 335s, why those things are still around is because they do what they do so well. Yeah. You know, and anything, I mean, people might argue with me about this. Anything after that is just a variation on those.
Yeah, I don't think many people argue with you on that. Yeah, it is. There are variations. Well, all right, so Telly is your number one. Is there any?
And then pretty much, you know, I've got a Strat. I've got a few Strats actually, and to me, those are very specific. Like if I'm doing something that, let's say I had to learn somebody's music to go play a show with them, and the song has a Strat on it, I'll bring a Strat for it. I want to nail that tone. Or if we're doing, like if I'm in a session and my brain is just saying, or my ears are saying, this song needs a Strat, then I will use a Strat for that. But it's very specific. Whereas the Telly, and then my other go-to is, surprise, 335. You know, between those two, I pretty much can cover everything. There again, a 335 is very responsive. You can plug it straight into an amp.
Yeah, it really is. What year is your 335? Is it a newer one or a vintage?
Mine's a newer. Mine's a I think it's a 2012.
Yeah,
it's a Memphis one. I had been on the search for years. You know, I didn't buy one. I've got some other hollow bodies that are really cool. I've got an old 57 225 that.
Oh wow!
That I love that. It's P90s. I've got flat wounds on it. It's amazing. It was stolen from me. I got it back. Anyway, long story.
Oh,
but
cool.
Anyway, I've been shopping for 335s forever, just years, picking them up, always playing them. Nope. And then one day I was in LA on Sunset, I guess, wherever the guitar shops are. And I went into the Mesa Boogie store because they have a bunch of Nash Telecasters. And I thought, I'm going to play some of these Nash Tellies. Played every single one of them. And I was like, well, none of them are calling out to me today. So I thought, but I'm across the street from Guitar Center in Hollywood, so I'll just pop in there for a second. No agenda. And then I walked in and I went back to the sort of the high-end custom room.
Yeah.
And the guy working there actually, I was just like, actually talked to me for once. You know, usually they're too busy, but I don't want to say that about Guitar Center. But he was really cool, and he was just like, hey, man, can I help you out with anything? And I said, yeah, actually, I'm just kind of curious. They had a handful of 335s hanging there. And I said, I'm just kind of interested in maybe getting a 335. And he said, okay, well, here's the one you want. And he just took this one off the wall and handed it to me, and I strummed it, and it was alive, unplugged, just like ring. There's that resonance and everything. And he said, go ahead and play all of them, but I guarantee you're going to go back to this one. So I did that, and he was right. All the others were good, but they didn't have that. The sound just jumped out of the one I got. And meanwhile, I was there, another employee came in, well, he was working, but he came in because he wanted that 335 that I had.
Oh, funny.
Out of it. So I'm like, all right, this is the good one off the wall, and the guy working here wants this one, and he can have any one he wants. So I walked out of there.
Good for you, man.
It was used, so it had to stay there for 30 days to clear the
the warrant
stolen.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Clearance thing, but a background check or whatever. But so I ended up getting that one, and it's great. It's interesting to me. These guitars they're kind of like individual languages. Each one, they speak differently.
Yeah,
it's like just like with cooking and food. Like one's Japanese, one's Italian. One's Moroccan. They all kind of do a certain thing, and over the years, I've learned that I have to learn what the language is of each of these guitars. And a 335 does a certain thing, not just the sound, but the way it feels and the way it reacts to your touch and responds. It just has its own thing. 335 can sound stratty sometimes in the neck pickup, and the bridge pickup's real kind of mid-rangey. It's different.
It's very, at least I like my 335. It's very responsive to the tone knobs, man. It's incredibly responsive.
Absolutely.
And I really like that about it. Cause I'm not a pedal guy, probably because I'm just not smart enough because I don't play well enough. I have to spend time focusing on the guitar, so I don't have the time or the bandwidth. So I like, to just be able to use my tone knobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it's all there. I mean, I spent years with all that on 10, every night, and stepping on pedals. And I don't have a problem with pedals. I own a ton of them.
Yeah,
I need them. And in fact, the time kind of going back to when I stopped using them was right like at the beginning of the whole boutique pedal boom. Talk about poor timing. Just when everything was blowing wide open, it was when I chose to stop using them.
Well, don't worry. They'll take your money now. Don't worry. There's no hold on it.
Right. But I've got a ton of them, and I like them, and they are creative. You can do all kinds of creative things. I just find that for my brain that I sure just love not thinking about it. In fact, most of the time when I use pedals, I usually leave them on and just set it and forget it. If I can, I try not to be down there stepping on things all the time. Sometimes I might need a boost for a lead or something, but otherwise I set it and I try to set it so it's dirty enough when it's wide open, but I can back it off and clean it up
with the volume.
So, it works for me, but most of the time, if I can, I just take them out of the chain because then I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah. I get that.
So like a Tele and a 335, I could do pretty much everything I need. I've got Les Pauls, but oftentimes, especially as a side guy, I use specific tools for specific things. So like, right now, my gold top is tuned in an open E for slide.
For slide, yeah.
Do all this Dwayne Allman stuff, The gold top is kind of set up for that. All these different guitars kind of have their different purposes for certain things. Like I said earlier, if I need a Strat, I specifically use a Strat. But if I'm walking into something that I'm not totally sure of, I know that if I walk in with a Tele or a 335, there isn't anything I can't do.
Very cool.
Pretty much. They're the most versatile tools that I can think of. And so a third one, I don't know. Believe it.
No, it's totally cool.
I've got a Martin D18 that I love. I play that, for my acoustic. I love that, that gets it done for me. Some people are Gibson, a lot of people use Gibson J45s or, the Gibson types of guitars, which I love them. They sound killer. But in my hands, for some reason, they seem too dark.
You like the Martin?
Yeah, Martin, my hands seem to make a Martin pop, and the Gibsons are just dark. I don't know what it is, But I also play. One of the things I learned about playing from years of playing a Tele is that the magic, to me at least, of the Telecaster is that area of the metal bridge plate. That is where the back pickup is.
Yeah.
That's where everything happens. And if you start plucking, with the pick back there, that's when all these different shades.
Yeah, the spank and every. Yeah.
So if you apply that to other guitars, you start getting all kinds of different results too. So like when I'm playing my Martin, if I'm doing like a writer's round here in town or something, and I'm playing and I need to take a solo and it's got to jump out, I start picking back at that bridge just like I'm playing a telly. I played a rockabilly festival this 10 years ago back in Southern California, and Ashley Kingman, who's a guitar player with Big Sandy, was watching me, and I was playing a Gretsch. I used to have this really cool 1960 vintage Gretsch that I sold because it was mint, and I was always afraid I was going to put a scratch in it. But I was using it that night, playing all this sort of rockabilly stuff, and he came up to me afterwards and was like, "You're a telly player, aren't you?" And I'm like, "How can you tell?" And he's like, "Because you don't play a Gretsch like a rockabilly guy. You play it like it's a telly."
Oh, that's interesting. That's really cool.
You make it do all of these telly things. And so he called me out on it. So that's
really cool.
That's when I knew. I was like, oh, okay, it's on. I guess I've figured this thing out. So I do that with a 335. I do it with Strats. I do it with whatever. Whatever I've learned to do with a telly to make it come to life, I can now apply that to other instruments. They don't all respond the same way. But
I'm glad you said that because I need to mess around with that more. Very cool.
Yeah. And the thing about a telly that I like so much about it too, and a 335 the same way, is that every sound is usable. There's only a 3-way switch on a telly. Each one of those sounds is very usable. Whereas like on a Strat, if you have a 5-way switch, you're not going to use all those sounds.
That is true.
They're very specific. But with the telly and a 335, because they're both 3 ways, pretty much they're all very usable, if that makes sense.
Who are some players you're listening to that have influenced you, maybe that aren't the Stevie Ray Vaughan, Hendrix,
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's tough. Because I think I consider myself a sponge. I can take, like, I hear something doing over here. I don't think, I want to be like that kind of player. I think I want to take that and put it over here in this whole other different place. So, like, there's a lot of guys I reference, like when I'm in sessions or when I'm just playing live, even it's time for a solo, I'll mentally go, this sounds like something that maybe so-and-so style would fit well over here. So like, there's guys like, believe it or not, like Django Reinhardt.
Yeah.
If you're playing some minor stuff, you start throwing in that gypsy jazz stuff in there, and it takes on all this color that you wouldn't normally have over a minor chord progression. It's like, so like I've referenced Django a lot, or I shouldn't say him specifically, but he is the father of all that.
Yes.
Gypsy stuff. Also, Mick Taylor, believe it or not.
Oh no, he's one of my favorite.
I reference him all the time. I don't even know I'm doing
amazing. He's one of my favorite guitar players, man.
Just his vibrato. But everything. I'm always just thinking about his phrasing, and sometimes I got to work on a slide part or something, and I'm like, I got to go listen to some Mick Taylor. That slide playing of him playing "Love in Vain" on Yayas. I'm just like, it's so good.
Such a soulful player, man. He's great.
And it's not amazing. Anybody can do it.
No, but his soul is.
The feel, the feel was so good. Guys like him, I reference with my Strat actually a lot in the studio. I reference Ed King, from Leonard Skinner. He just passed not that long ago. But if there's a song he did with Leonard Skinner on the second album called Ballad of Curtis Lowe.
Oh, what a great song!
And it's just I can use all that stuff.
What a great
all the slide
song.
Playing. Ba-da-ba-bow, ba-da-ba-bow, ba-da-da-da-gow, bow, bow, ba-da. All that stuff is usable.
Great song that is, Ballad of Curtis Lowe.
Yeah, his Strat tones. I throw that stuff in all over the place when I can. And it's all because of him. There's other guys that, like, believe it or not, Peter Frampton.
No, Frampton's great.
He was a big guitar hero back in the day. But the thing about him was as a guitar player, actually, believe it or not, I don't know if anybody knows this, he's a phenomenal gypsy jazz player too.
I did not know that. That's for sure.
But yeah, he's a monster. But the thing about Frampton is that there was a handful of these guys back in the 70s that had this sort of stream of consciousness where they could just play these long, extended solos and just go on and on. You know, Frampton could do it. Jimmy Page could do it. Frank Marino from Mahogany Rush could do it. Ted Nugent. You know, if you think of Stranglehold,
he's just a great guitar player.
On and on. These guys could just go and go, and it was always interesting. And the thing about Frampton that stood out was not only could he do it, but it was so tasteful. His phrases had a sophistication to it, you know, that just always fit perfectly. You know, listen to Lines on My Face. Just perfect phrasing, perfect lines, always held your attention. And his tones were killer too. You know, he had that Leslie going, but even when he didn't have the Leslie on, it's just his tone was always good. So musical, I guess. He was just so musical in his playing. Not to mention the stuff he did with Humble Pie
which is awesome. Really cool. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, people probably would be, they would associate me with that, but
very cool.
I go to those guys. And, you know, there's also, I mean, there's like Tony Rice and Norman Blake, those guys, I think of them all the time, you know, how to kind of work around in the bluegrass stuff. It's all across the board. I reference B.B. King. I reference everybody, you know, they're like ingredients when you're cooking. You just kind of sprinkle these things in here and they fit perfectly into these places. And that's not to say that if there's an opportunity for me to be completely myself and inject myself into something, I will do that too. I do have an identity, even though I'm referencing all these other people. There are times when I just do what I do, and if it works, it works. You know?
Everybody loves this question, man. Desert Island Discs, top 3, no particular order, just for now.
Boy. Yeah, that's tough. I mean,
of course, it's ridiculous. That's why I say just for now, because it could change.
There was someone who I listened to recently on your show that said, "Well, what about box sets?"
Oh yeah, you can do a box set, man. That's all good.
I can't think. I mean, I can't really think of any box sets. I could think of 4. Yeah. Of course, believe it or not, probably the one record I have to always have is, as crazy as it sounds, is Street Survivors by Leonard Skinner.
No, that's a great record.
Steve Gaines, phenomenal guitar player. That album, I grew up just burning that record into the ground. So it's just all that stuff.
He died at a young age too, I think, didn't he? Didn't he die at a really young age?
He was in the plane crash.
Yeah, he was young though, I think. And he wasn't even in the band a long time, I think. Oh. Yeah.
I mean, he's one of those guys where you go, wow, what a future. I mean,
have you heard his solo album?
Yeah,
it's great.
He had all that talent.
Yeah, really super talented guy, man.
It's just, you know, people always talk about like, well, you know, what wouldn't it have been interesting to hear what Hendrix would have done later on in his career? And I agree. Yes, it would have. But I also think, man, Steve Gaines was just starting.
Yeah.
You know, but he already had so much under the hood. Yeah. He had his finger tone was really good. Just the way he played, you know, he had that tone in his hands. Street Survivors, always got to have that one. And then I got to have some variety. So like and this is probably cliche and tired, but Kind of Blue, Miles Davis. I have to have that. It covers everything I need from that. All the phrasing, the instrumentation, you know, it doesn't have guitar on it.
No.
But everything about it just makes my brain pop.
That's a very popular disc that comes up. You know, guys that like jazz, that's always, you know.
I got it. I mean, there's Wes Montgomery. There's all these killer jazz players out there. Kenny Burrell, you know, all that stuff. But I don't always have to have guitar.
Right.
And sometimes I get inspiration from other instruments.
I don't always have to have guitar, but when I do.
Manzanita, that's a Tony Rice album.
That's
just
right.
All just killer Tony Rice picking.
Wow, you've really spread it around. You touched every. That's pretty diverse, man. Street Survivors, that's really diverse. You got all your all your jets fired there. You get jazz, bluegrass, and
rock and roll.
Southern
yeah,
rock,
I mean, if I had to throw
blues.
another one in there, it would probably be Tres Hombres by ZZ Top.
Top, great album, man.
I love
Is that the one with the green album, the double? Yeah. Dude, that cover was like, I think anybody that ever smoked weed looked at that cover at like for hours, you know.
The gatefold, when you open it up, it's got that dinner, you know, the Mexican food.
Oh my God, yeah. Not to mention, you know. So I heard that you used to, you know, clean your weed over a double album cover.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So no, I just saw a documentary.
I know. No, I was going to say I wasn't really one of those guys, but I know people that usually would use the white album for that.
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't lose anything.
Good point. Hey man, what is your these are really tough questions I want to ask you.
Okay.
Man, what do you like most about yourself?
Interesting. I think I'm fairly open-minded. You know, I don't discount things immediately. Like I give everything a chance. You know, like, so if something comes my way, I don't immediately think, oh, I don't like this, or that's wrong, or that's bad. I don't judge necessarily. I give it a chance, and then, you know, over time, I'll decide if, you know, what I think of it, or, you know, where it should be, what its place is. I really respect that. That's a great trait. Well, we all know people that have very strong opinions about things, and that's great. They probably have a very strong sense of self, and they're defined. They know exactly what they like and what they don't like. For me, the world is just so huge and so full of amazing things.
It's not a black and white world, man.
There's so much out there, and it's hard for me to say, nope, you know, I don't come from this. I come from a different background or whatever. You know, I'm not one of those guys. You know, I just think, gosh, there's so much out there that's interesting. Yeah. And the minute I start closing my mind off to it, I lose out.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm going to miss something great. There's plenty of great stuff out there. And, you know, if I thought, oh, there's no good music out there anymore, which, believe me, sometimes I think that, but, you know, like, I'm not trying to plug anybody, but like, I love the Fretboard Journal, that magazine, just all those darlings from that, you know, Bill Frisell, all these guys. I would have never read about Julian Lage or Blake Mills, you know, all these guys that are just young players that are just doing great stuff with the instrument. So yeah, I just like to stay open-minded, because to me, there's just so much great stuff out there. And also, I think I really believe in the golden rule. Like, I just really
do unto others as you'd have them do unto you.
And maybe that's selfish. I don't want anybody to be mean to me. So
no, I don't think that's
not that I can't handle it.
That would be that's
you know what I mean.
It's hard to say someone who believes in the golden rule is a selfish person. That's not the whole premise for that is not really like self, you know, driven.
This day and age, but I just truly believe that, you know, I want to be nice and be good to people, and I hope that they're the same way to me. Why would I want the alternative?
Yeah.
You know, I don't want everybody hating me.
Yeah, man.
One thing, I'm not in that line of work. You know, I unfortunately, especially as a sideman, I need acceptance. You know, I have to be. My goal is to perform in a way that keeps me hired.
Sure.
So I try to do my best to treat everybody nicely. That's my goal.
Very cool, man.
If those are probably about the only two things I like about myself.
No, I don't say that. It's always tough to ask musicians that question. How about this one, man? What's your definition of happiness? So that's a tough question also.
That's a tough one. What was the Dylan quote? You know, happiness is waking up and doing what you want every day. That's the definition of happiness. But for me, it has more to do with a state of mind. Like, I have a lot of, I don't want to say baggage, but I have there's regrets. You know, there's things I've done in my life that I wish I hadn't. That's still that I'm working on letting go. You know, not anything really bad. Just
no, but everybody has their own demons.
I didn't rob banks. I didn't do anything like that. I just, you know, there's things that when I think about being happy, my idea of being happy is being free of those thoughts. Being
I get you.
It's sort of like the residue of regret. Like there are times when I think, oh my gosh, I'm in this situation right now. Whatever you can think of. It's like, it's a beautiful sunset. The weather is perfect. I'm outside. Everything is amazing. Whatever. And yet I still have this, something that's eating at me that I'm keep trying to push aside. And it's just stuff from my past. So my definition of happiness is being clear of those things. If I can just get rid of that stuff out of my head for a while, I am able to find true happiness.
You're probably good with forgiving other people, right?
Depends on, but yeah, I mean, I work on it. I have to work. It's effort.
Okay. I was going to say, because sometimes if you could just swap out, well, if I could forgive others, then why can't I forgive? You know what I'm saying? It's sometimes
absolutely.
It's easy to look at yourself as a third party instead of, like whenever I have a problem in business, I always say, okay, let me take, what would I do if I was one of my consulting clients? And I take myself out of the equation,
So it's an effort, it's an ongoing work of art.
Yeah, no, we're all works in progress, I think, man.
Yeah, work in progress. So.
Most important thing your dad taught you?
Well, that's interesting. I grew up in a house, which was probably common, typical, where unfortunately, like I consider myself to be sort of a why person. I always want to know why something is, and that's a weakness on my part because if somebody says we're all going to jump off the cliff and I say why, and they say because it's the best thing to do, and they convince me, I'm like, okay, I'll go do it. All you have to do is convince me of it. But I grew up in a house where when my father would say you have to do this, and I would say why, it was considered sort of defiant, and like he would say his answer was because that's the way it's done.
Right, because he's coming out of that military background too.
Yeah, don't ask.
Yeah,
because that's the way it's done. And I always knew, like,
which is great in the service, but you can't really necessarily run a household
and
identically like that. Yeah,
right. And I wasn't defiant. I just truly, when I understand how things work, I'm better with it. Like if you tell why, well, because you see this. I'm like, okay, cool. Now I know why.
Right.
And so I grew up in that house. So there wasn't a lot of sort of information handed over. So to speak. Yeah. Just like, this is what we do, and that's just how it is. And but he, oddly enough, I mean, I shouldn't say oddly enough, because my father is a real stand-up gentleman, amazing guy. I don't think he's ever had an enemy ever. And this is like, military commander. There's probably some guys that didn't like him, but that goes with the job. But one thing I do when I think back, you asked the question, when I think back on, okay, what were some of the things that stand out? He actually, when I was really young, he taught me that it's very important to respect women.
Oh, that's a good one, man.
My father's a real gentleman. He's not one of these sort of locker room dirty joke guys at all. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just he was always
respectful to women.
Very respectful and a real gentleman. And he instilled that in me. That is something that I try to live up to. So that he taught me that. And also interesting thing that he indirectly taught me. He doesn't know this, but he taught me that I don't necessarily have to, it's hard to word this without giving you the story on it, but basically my parents were in Germany and there was a concentration camp exhibit or museum or something there. And my mom had asked my father, would you be interested in going to that? And he said, no, I don't want to go to that. I don't need to see that. That's something I don't need in my life. And he doesn't know it, but my mom told me about that. And that made me realize that just because things are here, I don't have to go be a part of them just because, some people will say, well, yeah, everybody knows you don't have to do everything everybody else is doing. But some stuff that's out there that are just public, like museums or things, I always thought, well, they're just public things that I can just go and do. But through his example, I realized I don't have to take everything that's out there.
Yeah.
I don't have to. If I don't want to be a part of something, I don't have to be, even if it's just an open place for the public to go.
No, that's an important lesson, man.
And it really, I learned that in my early 20s, and it really just gave me a better sense of what I can decide I want to do and what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would always feel like, well, I should go do this because everybody else says I should go do this. And I'm not talking about doing bad things. I mean, just everything.
Yeah, just like go to a museum, for a perfect example. Yeah.
It's like, I don't have to do all of these things that society or people say you should go do this. That's kind of vague, but that was the example where I learned he didn't want to go to something because he chose not to, and he didn't feel it was positive in his life. Oh, I don't have to do that either.
That's a great lesson, man. That's a really important lesson.
That's an example right there.
That's a very important lesson, man. Good for you. How about your mom? Most important thing she taught you?
I don't know. I mean, this sounds terrible. I don't know that my mom necessarily sat down and said, son, you need to know this about life.
Yeah. No, that's not wrong with that.
I don't. There's a very interesting, it took me years to kind of figure this out, that all along, sort of my mom had been sort of silently supporting my interest in music. She was the one who would always sort of slip me a tape or something like here's she would always, usually it was like jazz stuff, like, hey, you really need to listen to this Chick Corea tape. Okay. Hey, here's a Pat Metheny tape. You really need to listen to this. And I think, oh, okay, what,
That's really cool, man.
I think that was kind of her way of saying it's kind of edgy in the household for you to be a musician, but
that's really cool, man.
Yeah. Here, check this out. Like I remember her. I remember her saying to me, like, one day she came home and said, I heard this Lionel Richie song on the radio. It's got this great guitar solo in it. It's called Hello. You need to learn that solo. I just thought, well, that's out of the blue, but I went downstairs. I found it on the radio. I somehow got a copy of it off the radio, and I learned that solo. And I think she was busy in the middle of something, didn't want to be bothered. I'm like, Mom, come downstairs. She's like, what? What is it that's so important? I said, I learned this solo to the Lionel Richie song, and she was very happy to see that I did that. But I think my timing could have been better. But
that's really cool.
Those were the little things that she sort of, indirectly kind of fed me in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It took me, like I said, it took me years later to kind of realize, like, if I didn't know any better, I would think she was kind of helping me out a little, supporting me in that way.
That's very cool. Yeah, it sounds exactly like that's what she was doing. That's fantastic. 2 more questions, man. And I'm sure you're going to say cooking. What you have any hobbies or interests outside of music? Because you've referenced cooking 2 or 3 times.
Oh, yeah, I do. I love cooking. Actually, I love eating. That's the problem. I love eating. So having lived in all these different places and traveled all over the world, I've acquired a broad palate. From the time, like I said, time I was 4 until I was 9, I lived in Hawaii. So you can imagine, like I didn't even know what sushi was. I would go to I have classmates that would have birthday parties, and they're all Japanese, and all the kids are running around, and then a mom would walk through the room with a platter full of rolls, hand rolls and stuff, and all the kids would be like, yay, and they'd be eating these things, and I'd go, okay, well, these must be good. I'd be eating them and going, yeah, this is great. And then years later,
you found out it was sushi.
Yeah. Oh, that's sushi. You're eating that stuff. I'm like, I didn't know any better.
That's so funny.
It was great.
Yeah, it is great.
So, one thing, kind of backtracking a little, you're saying, what did my mom teach me? There again, indirectly, my mom, for some reason, fortunately, was cooked all kinds of stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
She cooked all kinds of different food, curries and Japanese food, and just like everything you can think of. She made killer, like jambalaya and ham hocks and beans, all that stuff down home. But a wide variety of dishes from all over the world. So because of that, once I was out on my own, I'm like, I have this craving for all these different things. So And cooking is a lot like music. It's creative. It's got all these different styles. It requires all these ingredients. It's the same as putting music together. It's
one of the most popular things that musicians enjoy is cooking. I hear this all the time.
I think part of it too has to do with the fact that we're on the road so much.
Yeah, I can see.
You're at the mercy of whatever there is,
Catering, yeah.
Catering. Now, I was out. I did a summer tour with ZZ Top 2 summers ago, and I will say I could barely fit into my stage clothes by the end of the tour.
Oh, because they were eating so good.
The food was so good. I packed on so much weight. It was so that was there was no problem there with food. But yeah, cooking and let's see. I think I had made a couple notes. Where is actually, believe it or not, running. I love running.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I was going to say, you're pretty slim for a guy who likes to eat.
Yeah, I have to run.
A lot of people, I know a lot of guys, they run just to eat.
Yeah, it's like that. Like, if I'm going to burn everything through my system, I'm going to go running. And I can eat whatever I want.
Yeah.
I have to lay off the fried chicken a little bit. But yeah, I can pretty much run and do whatever I want. Eating, cooking, running, yoga. I've been getting into that. That's easier on the knees.
Yeah, man.
But I have an interest, believe it or not, in bushcraft.
What is that?
Bushcraft is just sort of, it's woodsy stuff. It's like Boy Scout stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Like learning how to make, like lean-to sheds out in the woods with, tree branches.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of, that's interesting, man.
Survival skills outside in the forest. I love that stuff.
That's cool.
Batoning firewood and creating things. So I love that. I love being outside because I grew up, where I grew up, all that floodplain, it's all creeks. And I pretty much grew up like Tom Sawyer. We were all about rope swings. And
that's awesome, man.
Catching crawfish. But
that's very cool.
So yeah, bushcraft. I used to love working on cars. I had a 69 GTO that I built the engine for and put together and bolted up that tranny, all that stuff. So I used to really be into the car thing. But I'm not really in that position right now I don't have that kind of free time.
Yeah. It's a lot of time you need to.
Like, I just take a Saturday and turn wrenches all day. I don't have time for that, but I do love doing it. And as taboo as it might be to say it nowadays, I like to go shooting.
No, man, this is wrong. I don't think it's taboo.
I'm not a gun nut. I'm not at all. I grew up my father competes. He's kind of slowed down now, but he competed for years up and down the East Coast.
What events? Rifle. Yeah.
Target, rifle. He'd shoot iron sights. He's one of these 30-06 M1 Garand military guys that would shoot, 1,000-yard.
Wow.
Iron sights, and place them on the target. And he was also really good at skeet. So he would, compete up and down. He was like the team leader of these, competitions for these groups.
That's not easy, man. Would they do with like a shotgun?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's difficult to shoot a shotgun. It's not easy. I found it. It was not like shooting a rifle or a pistol, man.
It's a whole other thing. And the thing about like shooting skeet is from these different positions, that you have to put a lead when you're aiming. I don't want to get bogged down in this stuff, but you don't aim right at the bird.
You're right, because that's what makes it so tough. Yeah. Yeah,
you put a lead in front of it so the bird flies into the shot. So it's not easy. And he's really good at it.
Yeah, that's tough.
So that's something we would do together, and I still really enjoy doing that. But I didn't grow up in not that there's anything wrong with it, but I didn't grow up in a hunting house. It was just targets, and that's all I've ever been into. I just go out to the range, shoot some targets. It's like for some people, some folks say to me, "Oh, why don't you go play golf?" And I'm like, "That is my golf. That's
I totally
expensive,
get that.
And it
is pricey, man.
Takes time, and you got to clean the I don't want to say weapons, but you got to clean your
you got to clean the guns. Yeah.
Firearms. But that's an interest. I don't do it as much as I would like to. I'm not a like I said, I'm not a gun nut. I'm a very responsible, because I was brought up that way, gun owner. So.
Yeah, I had a good buddy of mine. He lived in Idaho, and of course I grew up in New York City. They never saw a gun in my life except in the movies, right? And he had guns, and I'm like, dude, is this okay? I said, your gun's out. He goes, of course it's out. I'm like, your kids are there. He goes, of course they are. But he just explained, he goes, hey man, I when they were really little, I left these out on purpose to educate them about that these are, this is a tool. You use it to do this, and
don't mess around.
Yeah, right. And I taught him proper gun safety. And so that was brand new for me to learn that. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I had no opinion on it. I knew I didn't have any familiarity with that. Didn't mean I didn't process in my head that just because I don't have any familiarity with it, that nobody should have, that it's bad necessarily. It's just, I never grew up with it. Of course, in the Bronx, you're not going to leave a fucking firearm out.
No, you're not. And, the thing about owning those is you're not the one you have to worry about. It's the guy who breaks into your house.
Yeah, right. It's,
and I mean, when you're away, you got to worry about the guy who breaks into your house and steals.
Yeah. Well, he showed me at all these safes and stuff specifically for that reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a whole
massive industry around that.
Yeah. And I from day one, as far back as I can remember, I was around them, and I was.
Well, yeah, if your dad's in the military,
extreme respect and responsibility. There's no messing around. No,
not with a firearm.
Ever. No question. So anyway, that's an interest.
Very cool, man. You got a lot of stuff going on. That's good. Hey, Storm, last question. What's been the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that change has been intentional and how much is just a part of aging?
Well, 6 years ago, I stopped drinking alcohol.
Wow, good for you, man.
So I'm not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm not part of any program.
Sure.
It was just a decision. At that point in my life, I saw that there was a lot of things I wanted to be doing so much more with my life. And I lived in LA, and in LA, if you want to go somewhere, you got to plan like 2 hours ahead to go somewhere.
Sure.
There's traffic, you can't just drive down the street. So I just found that everything I wanted to do, which was just more, I could accomplish if I had more hours in a day. I had maxed out my hours because, hey, it's 5, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to grab a drink. And that's fine. But I needed to be working until midnight. I needed to be out doing things and socializing. And the only way, and I had to be present. So the only way I could really work harder and work more was to have more hours in the day where I was present, clear-minded.
Yeah.
And so I just made a decision, nothing bad had happened. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I haven't been arrested or nothing.
Yeah.
Happened. This is going to be a good time for me to just kind of stop doing this.
There was no quote bottom per se.
Right. I hadn't hit the bottom, and I had no plan. Not like, I'm going to do this for a year. I just thought, I'm going to just do this for now, and if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, whatever. I haven't lost anything.
Yeah, of course. There's no downside to stopping drinking. Yeah.
So for me, it's just worked. It just like everything just kind of started to line up better. Not necessarily like suddenly I had better jobs. It's just everything I did. My playing got so much better.
That's great,
my
man.
ears suddenly started to refine, and I had a much deeper pocket in the groove, so to speak. Like suddenly, I was able to just focus more and be more aware of what I'm doing musically. It benefited so much so that right now, I would feel that I would lose that if I went back to drinking. I can drink if I want. I
Sure.
just choose not to, and I haven't. But it's just has made such a big difference in my playing and just my ability. Like it just removed a concern. Like anybody, most normal people, they go out, they have a drink, then they're thinking, okay, now I have to drive home. I don't ever think about that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Like it's never an issue. I'd never think about, I should be doing this or I shouldn't be doing that. Or that's removed from the equation. And it just makes it so that when I go to work, you have to remember that most of the work that guys like me do are in places that serve alcohol.
Oh, absolutely.
So imagine if I go into your office at 9 a.m. and start handing you free drinks, you're going to have a hard time working.
Yeah. It's a great way to put it.
That is my work environment. I show up. Believe me, when you're the guitar player in a band, the drinks start coming. You don't even ask. So I find that by not drinking, and it doesn't, for me, it just didn't work to say, no, I'm not drinking tonight. You can't do that. It doesn't work. Or I'm not going to have any more. It doesn't work that way in a bar. It's all or nothing. So I just found that by eliminating that, I can go to work, be a professional, be in a place that specializes, its purpose is to serve alcohol, but I don't have to be a part of it. Everybody else can do it all they want. It's fine. But I like coming in, being clear-minded, and just having a focus for my profession that I'm going to go in and do my job and not be at a party. I don't want playing music to be a party for me. It can be a party for everyone else. Awesome. That's what they're there for. Yeah. But I'm not I'm not on the same page. And sort of the analogy I always use is like, if you were a caterer for a wedding and you're at the reception and everybody's partying and they all come up to you and say, isn't this a great party? You're not going to say it's a great party because I'm having a party. You're going to say, I'm working this party. I'm serving you food. I'm the caterer. I'm here to work.
Yeah.
I want to do a good job. I don't want to come in stumbling and tripping all over my tables. I want to do a good job because I'm hired as a professional. You guys have fun. Let me do my job. And that's kind of how I feel about with the music. It's like, I want to come in and do the best I can for you. But we all know there have been plenty of times when people go out to see a band and the band's stumbling, falling over.
Yeah.
They don't sound very good. And they're,
What was the trigger? Was there anything specific, or that you just because usually when you do that, it's because the pain of continuing, and I think to do anything, the pain of stopping or not stopping is greater than the pain of, the other side. Was there anything in particular, or you just like?
I just was kind of, I could see that if I didn't change something, that I was maxed out. I was going to stay exactly at the same place I was.
Man, there was very courageous, man.
There was no way that I could advance in what I was doing without some kind of a change. And that change really was time. I needed more time. And I would come home and be like, all right, well, I had been, when I lived in LA, for the first so many years I lived there, I was out gigging all the time, but I also had to have a day job. I wasn't full-time
musician. Yeah.
Time just yet. I still had to have a job.
Sure.
And, so I had one. And it was really amazing. It was interesting. I worked for a company that installed and deinstalled art. So
that's cool.
We were on trucks, and you'd come into Beverly Hills or Bel Air, and you're putting in or taking out all this stuff in these humongous mansions. You're making these airport runs because stuff's getting shipped to their house in France or something. And so it was great, but it was the hours every single day were completely different.
Yeah.
You would call in the night before to find out when you had to go in. It could be 5 a.m. It could be 9 a.m. So as a musician, it's really hard to have any I need consistency. And it was just it. And it was very physical. You're loading huge works of art, sculptures and stuff onto the backs, up and down on the backs of these trucks. It was really interesting, but it was just physically breaking me. And I just could see, if I don't do something, I'm going to stay moving art for the rest of my life, even though I'm still gigging. I can't do both. So, because the hours are killing me.
That's
I'm out till 2 or 3 in the morning playing gigs and then having to go deliver art all day on a cruise. So,
yeah, that's tough.
I was like, I got to do something. And the only way I can do this, because I would come home from a day at work if I didn't have a gig and immediately, crack open a beer.
Yeah, sure. Of course. Yeah.
Whatever, I'm home. It's 5 o'clock, whatever. And of course, anybody who loves to cook, they're going to open a bottle of wine. They're going to pick everything up. So, by the time 8 o'clock rolls around, I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
Done. And so that was kind of the wake up, was just like, if I don't do something, I'm going to stay in this situation indefinitely. And this is not what I moved to LA for. I didn't move to LA to move art.
Yeah, man.
So I moved to be a full-time musician. And within a year, I was able to transition to full-time.
It's amazing how, man, I'm really happy. And first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I'm really happy that you did that. And because it sounds like to have so many nice things go on within this period of a year, it's just, it's a direct, you could directly attribute that success to that decision that you made. And I'm sure there's been loads of other things that you've done since then that you would not have been able to do. So, man, I'm really happy. And
it was a burden off of my back. It really was. It was just something that it works for other people. I mean, it's fine. I don't have any problem with it. But it just, for me,
no, this isn't about like making a judgment. This is about taking care of something for yourself, man.
Sure. Yeah. I just saw that I wasn't thriving, and I wasn't performing optimally. I knew I had more.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't. It was on reserve because I was sort of handicapping myself.
Yeah.
I needed more hours. I needed more clarity. And that's what it took. And to this day, I don't have any regrets about that. And in fact, I know for a fact that has gotten me quite a bit of work.
Oh my God, I'm sure.
People know, they're like, oh, we can.
Yeah, that's one less headache that someone else has got to worry about. And I hear this from guys all the time. I mean, I heard stories where a guy was out one time and he doesn't even drink at all. And he was with a few of his buddies that were hammered, and the MD comes walking by and he's like looking at him. And he said, I knew he's looking at me like, 'cause these guys were acting like drunken assholes. And he's like putting a note in his head. And sure enough, the next day he calls me over and goes, hey, what the hell were you doing last night? And he goes, I was doing nothing. He goes, you've worked with me for, however many years. I don't even drink. He goes, I was with my buddies that were carrying on like assholes, as you saw, Right. So, I mean, that is a concern from hiring bodies, without a doubt, man.
It's just, the days now times are different. It's not the 70s.
It's not the 80s, man, where, let's go do some cocaine because it's cool. Yeah.
Right. It's just not, you can't be Guns N' Roses anymore. So
well, you can, you just won't go very far. Even Guns N' Roses can't be Guns N' Roses anymore.
Right.
Man.
Yeah. So I found, in order to be the best that I can be, that was the change I needed to make. And I like knowing that no one has to babysit me at work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Thank you again. That was really cool. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm really happy you did that for you. And I'm really glad that you saw such great results and are still continuing to see. And you got a nice woman in your life now. So it seems like everything's like kind of worked out for you, man.
Absolutely.
Congratulations. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for everything. Let me tell people where they could find it. By the way, if somebody wants to reach out to you to maybe that struggling with drinking or something, would you be open to, if they contact you on social media or something like that?
Yeah, they can. Like I said, I'm not part of a program, so I'm not really like a sponsor. But
I think sometimes
I'm always open to talk. My decision was not. I don't want to say it wasn't health based. I mean, my health got much better too. But it was, it was emotional health. I wanted a better performance out of myself. I wanted more results. So if somebody's struggling with drinking, I'm more than happy to hear them. I'd love to talk to them.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can offer advice that would necessarily. I'll do my best to help.
Yeah, man. Just let's get a legal disclaimer here. This is not what do you say? What do they say? Results may vary, but something like that. Your results may vary. Not everybody will lose 100 pounds on the diet.
Right. That's exactly right.
Man, thank you for everything. Let me tell people where to find you. First of all, it's Storm Rhode, Rhode the 4th, but he goes by, and most people know him professionally as Stormy Rhodes, and you can check out his website at Stormy Rhodes Official. Again, it's Stormy, Stormy, Rhodes, Rhodes, official.com. And he's also on Instagram under Stormy Rhodes Official. And he has a Facebook page as well under Stormy Rhodes. And he is available. You give lessons too, I think, don't you?
I do.
Okay.
It's very popular to do Skype lessons right now. I've done a few of those, but I haven't really, I haven't been able to sort of make them amazing because, with Skype, you can't really play along. You can't play together. So I will do Skype lessons, but I think there's some drawbacks to them. But if somebody wants to do Skype, that's cool. Or anybody here in Nashville, I'm more than happy to. I've got a studio here. We can.
Awesome. And they can get a hold of you through Instagram, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So again, that's or Facebook page. Again, it's Stormy Rhodes Official. And of course, if you are looking to have someone help you with some sessions, Storm is available.
Sure.
And same thing, hit him up through Facebook page or Instagram. Dude, thank you for everything. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing everything. This is real nice, man. Very cool. It's funny. I sat in that car with you, and I didn't even think you were so mellow. Like you're so self-promotion. And then I get a call, and then he goes, you need to interview this guy, Storm Rhodes. I'm like, and that name sounds real familiar, man. And then when I was talking, I'm like, man, are you the guy that gave me a lift? You're like, yeah. I'm like, fuck. So thank you. And thank you again, man, for everything you shared. It was really cool.
My pleasure. Thank you for having this program. It's wonderful.
You're welcome, man. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it with a friend in your social media channels. We appreciate your support with that. Thanks again to Storm Rhodes for spending time with us. Again, support what Storm's doing, StormyRhodesOfficial.com and all his other social media stuff. And make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, and Storm will tell you this, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice. There you go, brother. Go play your guitar and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.